Now, a lot of people can follow through when someone tells them to, but a lot of times with our big, meaningful goals, these are things no one is ever going to, be like looming over us, like with deadlines telling us to do them. Like, no one's going to tell you to travel around the world. No one's going to tell you to write the book. No one's going to force you to make music. So for these things that no one else is going to tell us to do, it's important that we learn how to follow through on those things, because that's what makes a meaningful life. We need to find ways to follow through on things that no one is going to tell us to. So in this video, I want to talk about the 3 main problems that cause a lack of consistency and follow through, and how to then actually solve those problems and make being consistent effortless. So the first one, that's a little bit more philosophical before we get into the more practical ones, is thinking about your why. And I want to describe this chain so you can kind of see how this affects. So maybe let's just take an example. Maybe you have a job that you don't really like. And so you have a goal of, I want to have a side hustle. So I want to work on that side hustle so that I can make money, so that I don't have to work so much, so that I can just spend time going on my phone. That might be some person's train of thought. So the ultimate end goal of all of that work is going on your phone a bunch. And if you're already going on your phone a bunch, it would make sense, why would you even take action on the thing? Because you're already living in the ultimate end goal of what you want. Now, there's some differences in between, and there's a difference of emotional turmoil, and I think we can kind of intuitively understand that those will over time lead you into very different places, but on the short term, they seem like basically the exact same thing. So why would I put in more work to get the reward of where I already am? So what we're not going to do is, we're not going to shame ourselves or beat ourselves up for not being productive. It's like if there was a seed and we just set it on a tabletop, no water, no sun, no nothing. We just set it on a tabletop and like, you need to bloom now, bloom now. Okay, you need to bloom now. And sometimes we do that to ourselves. And so it's not a matter of just willing ourselves and telling ourselves we need to do these things over and over. And a lot of times that shame is actually just going to compound the barrier. But what we need to do is give ourselves the necessary ingredients that would naturally allow ourselves to bloom: the soil, the air, the water, the sun, and make that environment and the system around us such that it would be effortless to bloom. Now that I've talked about just like the philosophical reason, now I want to get into 3 incredibly practical ways to make sure that you actually follow through. Like they're just stupid easy. Like, these are practical ways to make sure that you follow through. First thing, when it comes to working on a meaningful project and you can't seem to get it done, the first common problem that I see people getting wrong, and that's really thwarting them, is timing. So if I were to ask you, when should you work on your most meaningful project? Should you work on it when you're more energetic or when you're less energetic? Most people would probably say more energetic, but there are a lot of different variables that we are optimizing for besides just energy. Energy is only one node in the system. So when people first start off on their meaningful project, they want to write a book or make music, a lot of times they'll say, I'm a morning person, so I'm going to work on it in the morning. Or they'll say, I'm an evening person, so I'm gonna work on it in the evening. Because we're just optimizing for your energy and enjoyment. That's kind of like the basic factor. But underneath all of that, there are lots of other variables to consider. And you may end up at the same conclusion. You may say, I'm a night owl, and based on all these other variables, I'm still going to work in the evening, and that's fine. Just as long as you understand what all these other variables are. So in addition to energy, another variable that I want you to consider is distraction level. Because the way society is set up, society has kind of decided, we're gonna wake up, we're gonna work from 9 to 5, we're gonna do our social hour, and then we're gonna do our sleeping. So most people are gonna be kind of, working within those constraints. So because of that, if we're gonna factor in distractions, I would say early morning and late at night are good for this variable, and anything in between those is bad for this variable. Because you might say, okay, I'm gonna work on this thing every day from 5 to 6 p.m. And then anytime there's a social event or anytime your friends want to go out, or if there's an emergency, people will call you then. But a lot of times, even if there's a big emergency, people are not going to call you really early in the morning or really late at night. It would have to be pretty major to be interrupted during those times. Another variable is decision fatigue and also self-control, which also have the same graphs throughout the day. So at the start of the day, you've got high self-control and good decision making, and over the course of the day, that just gets worse and worse and worse. And studies have actually shown that people are more moral at the beginning of the day than they are at the end of the day, just for the simple thing that these all have in common, which is we're better at resisting temptations at the beginning of the day than at the end of the day. So this is just another variable to include. So in the morning, it might be easier to get up and say, I'm gonna go to the gym. In the evening, you've had to overcome so many temptations and you've had to make so many decisions, and things will have gone wrong and people were annoying, and it was kind of wear you down. This is a wearing down effect that in the evening, it's a lot easier to just say, oh, I don't think I'm gonna do it today. A third thing to factor in is how are your emotions throughout the day? And I specifically mean if you do it first or if you do it later. So a lot of times when we're working on a meaningful project, like if I need to film, for example, that just feels like it's looming over my head. And you might have heard of the eat the frog principle, which is basically do the hardest thing first and get the rest done. And the reason for that is if I don't do the most difficult thing first, that's looming throughout my day, and that's kind of affecting my emotions. And because of decision fatigue, it's gonna wear me down. Conversely, if I do it at the beginning of the day, I get this boost of pride, and then it's like the rest of the day is just downward momentum. I did the most difficult thing first, and you can just ride it out the rest of the day. And you have a sense of pride and not the sense of questioning, am I gonna do it or am I not gonna do it? Am I gonna feel shame if I don't do it? And there's this kind of questioning. When you do it at the beginning, you've kind of taken away the question altogether. So if you've been unable to consistently follow through and execute, I would consider these variables, and based on these variables, try something else. So based on this, I would experiment for the next couple weeks. You could even try tracking these different variables. You know, every 90 minutes, set an alarm and see where's my energy, how is my self-control, like do I feel like I could do things I don't really want to do right now? So it's not that there's something magical about mornings, and I myself am not a morning person. Like if it were up to me, I would be up till 2 a.m., then I'd be up till 11 a.m. But because of the way society is structured and because of these other variables, I found that I was not able to consistently execute. Despite preferring evenings, I was not able to consistently execute. And I've heard it said that there are different hours of the day are kind of like real estate. Some are like a big mansion, prime real estate right on the water. Some hours of the day are like a shack, you know, if speaking like prime real estate. Mornings to me are prime real estate. And I've heard it said the way the first hour of your day goes is the way the rest of your day is going to go. And it's all about momentum. However you get in momentum is how the rest of the day goes, at least in my experience. So for all these reasons, if you haven't tried mornings, you might want to try it. And there's nothing wrong with doing evenings. And if you can consistently execute in the evenings, then I've got no problem. You know what I mean? I just want people to be consistently doing what they want to do and whatever it takes. And so I'm just providing some ideas for why it might not be working. But if you're working in the evenings consistently and you're consistently executing, then, you know, why even watch this video? You're consistently executing. Now I'll go through what I would say a basic routine would be if you want to try doing your meaningful project in the morning versus the evening. I'll go through both. If you're going to try working in the morning, I want to walk you through just a good schedule, tangible things that you can do to get it done. So I've heard a lot of people say your morning actually starts the night before. So the night before, I would actually do the getting started part, because the hardest part of getting things done is getting started. So I would do the first 5 minutes of the task. And so then the next morning when you wake up, you're already rolling. If you need to write, you've already got the Google Doc opened. You've already kind of done some of the decision fatigue the night before, so that you have a clear idea of what you need to do. It's not just a noun that says like writing habit, but you actually have clear things. I need to do this, then I need to do this, then I need to do this. So you have clear verbs every day of what you need to sit down and do. Additionally, because the way you end your day is the way you start your day, I don't like to end my day with my phone or TV, because then it's easy to just flow into that the next morning. I like to end with reading, and then it just puts me right to sleep. And so the next morning when I wake up, I'm already kind of in a non-tech mode. So I've got a huge non-tech block. When you wake up, just on a practical level, I recommend just chugging a bunch of water. And then I also will take green tea pills occasionally. I don't do it all the time, but if I want to be very productive, I will do that. Then I change settings because I'm not a morning person. If I'm in my house, I'm going to get in bed in the morning. So I just try to get ready as quickly as I possibly can. 15 minutes, get ready. It's very minimal. Then I'm out of the house and I go to a coffee shop. The coffee shop's nice because my bed is not there. And then during that time, I don't open other tabs. I don't have any notifications on. It's head down, headphones in, working on that task. And additionally, I kind of use my husband Garrett as an accountability partner. Years ago when I was first starting my YouTube channel, we would go to the coffee shop together and we were both working on our own meaningful projects. Now, he does work on a meaningful project, but he does it in the evening, so I'll kind of talk in a second about what works for him. But I will still leave when he leaves. So it's accountability for me to at least get out of the house. Now, if you choose to do your work in the evening, like after work, here's some best principles that I think have at least worked for me and Garrett. When you choose the evening, there are a few issues that you will have to address, and you have to address them kind of regularly, but depending on what your job is, it's worth it. Like if you go to work at 5 in the morning, like you might not want to wake up from 4 to 5. Like there is a point where it's just not worth it when it's so early. So since it's all about momentum, I like to think of it as like it's just a big momentum block. It's like you wake up, you go to work. As soon as you're done with work, you immediately get started on that next thing. So if you want to work out, you go straight to the gym. You don't go home and allow yourself to plop. If you want to work on your meaningful projects, like if you want to go to a coffee shop, for example, you go straight to the coffee shop and you do not allow yourself to come home and plop. That's basically what we're resisting here. We're resisting the urge to just plop somewhere, to plop on the couch, to plop on the bed. Like the sitting down, as soon as you sit down, it's going to be very difficult to then get back in that momentum, like the literal physical momentum as well as just like the motivational momentum. The second thing when you have an evening schedule is if you do that right after work, like let's say you work a 9 to 5 and then from 5 to 6 or so, you're working on your meaningful project. That 5 to 6, like if there's a holiday party or people want to hang out, and it's like you're gonna have to be rescheduling a lot. That's something that might happen more often for some people than for other people. So you have to then decide this is a priority. So if someone invites me to do something from 5 to 6, I am busy. Or if you're not gonna make it priority, you immediately reschedule it. So if you were gonna write on Tuesday at 5 o'clock and then someone says, hey, do you wanna get dinner Tuesday at 5 o'clock? If you say yes to that, you need to immediately reschedule when is that writing going so that I maintain my schedule. The second reason might be you're going to digital. Now, research has shown that when you write and when you put pen to paper, you are able to think more critically, you're able to remember it a lot better. It's shown that when people write down their intentions and their tasks and they're written instead of like on a Google Calendar, for example, you're more likely to actually get it done. Also, when you write things down as opposed to do it digitally, you're more likely to create a better plan and you are more likely to fulfill said plan. So the benefit for a digital calendar is efficiency. But just like this first thing, a lot of times there are different variables that we're optimizing for that we don't realize. Is efficiency the number one thing we want to optimize for, or is execution the number one thing we want to optimize for? And if you're choosing between those two things, you should choose execution every time. So it can just be very simple. It doesn't even need to be like an elaborate planning system or anything. It's just get a piece of paper, write down what you want to do the night before. Something that I love to do especially if it's a new habit and I cannot get myself to do it, which is usually in the realm of working out, stuff that I don't like to do, I will get a big poster, or you could get a big calendar. Let's just pretend this is a calendar here. And every day you do the thing, you put a big X on it and you hang it on your wall so that you see it. It's not like a goal that you set and then you hide it away in some drawer in the back of your closet that you never look at. It's you set a goal and you keep it top of mind, which means you keep it front of eye, like it is there. You walk into the living room and there is this big poster and you are crossing off X's. This gives you a little dopamine hit, like you don't want to break the chain. And even if you miss a day, that's fine. Put an X the next day. Another thing that I've done is I'll put a picture here, but in previous challenges, I'll just draw some shape. And then every day I do it, I shade it in. So you can kind of do like a color by number. I do like very basic, boring shapes, but you could actually draw a much more fun shape if you wanted. And every day you do it, you're coloring it in. So something that's analog, and the studies have shown you're more likely to actually do it if you do analog. A lot of the most productive people I know are very analog people. And a lot of people that I know who have a lot of great ideas, but not a lot of great execution are like very digital. They've got these like extreme Notion dashboards or whatever, and they have all these ideas and they made the perfect plan, but the execution's not there. So the third thing I want you to do is look to your past. There was a study done where they had two groups of people. They gave one group of people expert financial advice, like technically the best financial advice. And then with the second group of people, they didn't give them any advice. All that they told them to do was do what's worked in the past for you financially. And some of those techniques were obviously going to be worse than the expert financial advice. But after a month, when they brought the two groups back, the group that had done the best was the group that was just told, do what's worked for you in the past and consistently execute on that. For most people, our number one constraint is just executing. It's not that we need to have the perfect idea and the perfect strategy. It's we need to do the good enough strategy consistently over and over and over again. So I want you to think about the question. If I said, I will give you $1 million if tomorrow you execute on this thing. If you want to write 500 words a day, I will give you $1 million if you can write 500 words tomorrow. What would you do? What's worked for you in the past? What would you do to make sure that you get it done? And I think what it brings up the question of, if you did X tomorrow, I would give you $1 million. That makes the constraints very clear. It's like, you just need to write 500 words. They don't need to be good. Now, if I said you need to write 500 good words tomorrow, or I'll give you $1 million, then all of a sudden it becomes a lot more nebulous. And a lot of times we have these constraints that we don't realize that we have. I think in the second video of this series, which I'll have the playlist for the series linked in the description, but in the second video of the series, I talked about we need to just lower our standards. We need to say, I'm gonna make a crappy video today. I'm gonna write 500 crappy words today. And over time, you will naturally get better. You could give your 110%, Or you could just, you know, give your 50%, say I'm gonna write crappy words. In 5 years from now, when you look back, the result's still gonna be the same. When I look back at my videos I made 5 years ago, they all just seem about the same quality to me. They're just all about the same level of crappiness. But there were some that I put way more work into and I just killed myself over it. So because execution is the #1 constraint, we need to practice executing. And the results will come, getting better at the thing will come. What we need to focus on is just executing, getting it done. Write 500 crappy words, make a crappy video, you know, whatever it takes to just get the thing done. So throughout the series, we have figured out what we want, we've made a goal, we've chunked it out with individual deadlines, we've made weekly plans and daily plans, we've got strategies for how to get it done. But what do we do if things do not go according to plan? There are gonna be times when you give your best, you really try your best, and still for whatever reason you didn't do it, or there was something legitimately outside of your control that you got interrupted. So what do you do when things don't go according to plan? So in the next video, that's what I'm gonna talk about. Check out the playlist for the rest of the series, check out the potential planner, which I sell, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.